All right, so hi everyone, my name is Mahika and I'm here as a representative for Virtual Medical Society. And we're basically a student-led organization who helps medical students with their journey to medical school. So today we're bringing Virtual Med Society's first webinar of the year, and it's hosted by Keagan, who is a second-year medical student at the University of Central Lancashire. And today's webinar is going to be all about how to prepare yourself for being in a new country. Now, coming back to Virtual Med Society just quickly, I want to point out a few things that we do and we offer as an organization. We have things like the monthly newsletter that has a lot of helpful information about universities, about medical ethics topics, things that you can discuss in your interviews. We provide webinars such as this one and also virtual doctor shadowing opportunities. We also recently started a YouTube channel where recordings of our webinars will go to, and all of this information can be found on our Instagram, and you can access all of our content by signing up to become a member. Sometime during the webinar, I will be posting the link to become a member and our Instagram handle, so make sure to make sure that you are up to date with all of our events. Now, enough from me, I will be passing it on to Keagan now. And just remember that during the webinar, if you do have any questions, just pop it into the chat and we will be answering them at the end. Over to you, Keagan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm not sure right now. So like Mahika said, my name is Keagan Fernandes. I'm a second-year medical student at the University of Central Lancashire. So I'm a second-year medical student at UCAT. I just finished my first year and I just received my results around 2 weeks ago, and touch wood, it went well and I was able to make it as a second-year medical student. And yes, I've completed my first year and I have spent one entire year in the UK, and trust me, from a personal experience, it was an amazing challenge, a challenge that I'm glad that I embraced, and glad that I have completed 1/5 of my degree and 1/5 of my life in the UK as of now. So this webinar, I am trying to make it as interactive as possible. So please feel free to unmute your mics and ask questions if you feel like. If you want to interrupt me and ask me in between, please go ahead and do. Or if you don't want to unmute your mic, you're more than welcome to put your questions in the chat box below, and I will do my best to help you as much as I can. So this webinar, what I am most likely to be speaking around, is solely focused around, I wouldn't say solely focused around, it would be mainly about my experience as a first-year medical student in UCAT, which is in Preston, which is in the United Kingdom, which is in the northwest of the United Kingdom. So it'll be solely based around that, and what are the things to look forward to when you first land in the UK, and how do you go about settling in and getting your priorities and getting accustomed to the place and everything. So I just have a small PowerPoint which I have prepared, so I'll probably share my screen with regards to that. Mahika, I just want to share a screen, but it's saying that the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Is it possible you can help me out here?
Yep, can you do it now?
1 second, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can do it right now. Yeah. So, right. So can everyone see my screen if that's possible? Can everyone see it?
Yeah, it's good. We can see it.
All right. So I'll just start a bit and then I'll get to the questions in a bit. So yeah, I told you life in the UK, and yeah, from a medical student's point of view. So I think the first advice which I would like to start with is to be ready for change. I think that's my sole message. If there's one takeaway message I think I would like to spread to everyone over here, is that to be ready for change in every sort of way, be it with regards, now these are just few examples over here you can see. So one is with regards to your academic learning. Just a quick question, if that's all right, maybe if you can answer in the chat. Is everyone over here from Dubai, or is everyone over here from the UAE? Mahika, if you can help me out here.
I think we have a couple students, most students from the UAE, but we might have a couple students from elsewhere as well, but mostly I think.
All right, that's fine. So regardless wherever you are from, when you do shift to another country or there is bound to be a lot of changes and a lot of things which you have to become accustomed to. And I think one of the biggest would be, like over here as you see, is academic learning. So I'm pretty sure when you were in school you had a fixed pattern as to how you go about your studying and how do you go about with your rests, your breaks, and with regards to textbooks and past papers and everything. I think one thing which I want to say is to brace yourself for the change that happens, that you may need to undertake when you do come to university, because it's a whole nother ball game. And do get ready to change your study technique and your study pattern and the way in which you the way in which you go about your life once you do come to university, especially for a medical student. I will be getting to different study techniques which you could adopt in your first year, some of which I have tried implementing into my learning and some of which my friends haven't implemented in their learnings. So I will go about that later. With regards to the weather, so for me, let me just say my personal experience. For a person who has been born and brought up in the UAE for the past 19 years, going to the UK and trying like going to the UK where the maximum temperature is around 20 degrees and the coldest temperature can get to around -2 to -5 degrees, it was a huge change for me. And I think one change which I was mentally prepared for, but then when you do reach the UK and when the colder months start approaching, it tends to be a lot more difficult. You tend to stay indoors as much as you can and you try and avoid going out as much as you can. But yeah, I think the weather was a huge change for me. And then going from like a sunny place like Dubai to a gloomy place where it rains like almost 24/7 in the UK. I think that was a bit of a shock for me, something which took a while, almost took like 2-3 weeks to get adjusted to. But I think that's something for those people going to the UK or anywhere else, maybe it could be US or Canada. I think that's something which you'll need to mentally prepare yourselves for. So yeah, I think that's one of the things which I'd like to spread. And yep, culture. So British culture and UK culture and the way people who go about their lives over there is completely different to how people over here are, how we've been brought up in the UAE. Over there, I mean, I'm pretty sure the British culture is well known with regards to their drinking culture and just a lot of things unexpected, which hit me in the first year, where you go there and you tend to see things which you would probably never even dreamt of seeing in the UAE. Like you do get a chance to witness a lot of drugs in the street, a lot of drug dealers, and a lot of alcohol consumption by your fellow peers. And which brings me around to peer pressure and how you have to have your morals and your ethics in place, and you have to be clear and sure as to what you want and what you are willing to try. And regardless, whatever it is, whatever each person decides to do, I think one of the key things to keep in mind is that your friends or your friend circle and the company you keep is very, very important in university, be it you're a med student or you're doing a course, any other course. It's highly, highly essential that you do have a good friend circle who are like-minded as you and who have the same mentality and mindset as you, and that you are comfortable around them, you trust them. And I do understand that does take a bit of time, because we're living over here, well, for me, for 19 years, I had my fixed set of friends and people who I could trust blindly. But you do have to realize you are going to another country and you're going to have people from different cultural backgrounds. And I think it's highly essential that you get clear as to what you want and what you look for in your friend and your friend circle, and that you are comfortable around them and you do build that trust and your social support while you are in another country. So yeah, I'll just be getting around to a couple of questions which I have just received. So yeah, so I got a question as to how difficult was it living in quarantine? Right. So to be quite frank with you, I've had 2 trips to the UK where I think the first time when I went in September, we were on a tier 2 lockdown. So in a tier 2 lockdown, I think, yeah, I had to do a 14-day quarantine period. And in that, yeah, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. However, despite the fact that it was a tier 2 lockdown, I'm going to be brutally honest and say that myself and everyone as an international student in the UK did not really adhere to the quarantine. Like, it was very lenient and we kind of did break the quarantine in September. I'm not going to lie to you all. This was a personal experience because I couldn't stand the thought of being stuck in a room alone for 2 weeks. But that was my first experience. But obviously, it is extremely, extremely risky. And now that I think back and look back, it was not worth the risk taken. Yes, I did not get caught, but then I didn't really think of the repercussions or the consequences of my actions. But yeah, I didn't get caught, and the rules and regulations were pretty lenient back then in the UK when I did go in September. However, when I did come back for my Christmas holidays and when scenes really started getting bad in the UK, and when I did come back in February, back to Preston in Feb, the quarantine period had been reduced to 10 days, but uh, yeah, it had been reduced to 10 days, but the rules were a lot more stricter. And the UK border force were conducting regular checks to see that people who have flown in from different countries were adhering to the quarantine. So that was, I think, one time when I was really strict on myself and ensured and made it a point to stick to my 10-day quarantine period. So with regards to that, as to how difficult it was, I have to say that it really was a challenge. It I was fortunate enough that I have a friend who, well, he's my best friend and he's in the same school as me. He was in the same school as me, and we were lucky enough that we ended up in the same course and same university together, and we decided to move into the same flat. So I luckily had him for company. But it does get challenging in a while. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind is to keep yourself occupied. So be it with your Netflix shows, be it with video calling your friends, having movie nights with your friends, having game nights with your friends. I think the best thing you can do at that point is to distract yourself and do as much as you can indoors and keep yourself occupied and busy. Talk to your family, or, well, in my case, I remember when I went back, we were starting an entire block in my medical field. And yeah, I was pretty into it, and just using all my time in one place just studying. It does get tiring, and the chances of burnout are more likely. But that's what just I think one of my biggest advice for anyone in quarantine is don't do the same task repetitively. So don't continuously binge watch Netflix. Do not continuously keep talking to your friends. So I think just space it out and do different types of things. And I think one of the things in quarantine which played to my favor was I got a chance to cook a lot and learn a good amount of recipes. So that was one thing which I was really, really proud and happy for. And I think with the question with regards to quarantine may vary differently from person to person. And because there are some people who like to be by themselves, like to have some time to themselves, reflect and look back on, just their social life. And I think that time to themselves while they're in quarantine does help them to some extent. And now when I do go back into the UK, I do have a 10-day quarantine in a hotel all by myself. So it will pose a challenge, but at this point, I would say that I'm pretty much used to it, and I know what to expect, and I know how to keep myself busy with regards to my studies and my, watching movies, watching my TV shows, listening to my music, talking to my friends, talking to my family, cooking, and just, surfing the net, browsing the net, learning something new. Maybe I have a friend in the UK who literally spent time picking up a new language while they were in quarantine. So there are a lot of things you can do as long as you space yourself out and you know how to utilize your time wisely. Quarantine wouldn't be that much of a challenge. It just varies from person to person. So yeah. And I think I have another question yeah. So should you buy all clothes and food items from your home country or from the UK? Where is it cheaper? So that also depends. So what I did the first time I went there was I took two big suitcases, and I think I paid like around 5 kilos excess baggage. And I did take a lot of, so for me, so I'm from India. I'm originally from India, and I really like my spicy curries and my Indian dishes. So my mother really made it a point to give me all my masalas and all the essentials in Indian cookery. And I did take all of them in bulk when I went there the last time. And I think I would say that would be cheaper. That's what I did, and that's what I'm going to continue doing. But the place where I lived in, actually, I did that more for the fact that I was scared I wasn't going to get these ingredients when I do land in the UK. But again, I was lucky and fortunate enough that I do have a place in Preston that does sell Indian cuisine, and does sell ingredients from India, and uh, it's a lot more easier to, you know, cook over there with when you have these essential ingredients. But I think my personal recommendation would be to cook as well. It would be to take your ingredients from here. That's what I would do. That's what majority of my friends have done. You can buy in like ingredients over there in the UK, you know, with food stuff and everything. But I think my personal experience would be, and my personal recommendation would be, take food items from Dubai or from wherever you are, and hence go to when you're heading to the UK. And with regards to clothes, so clothes, I'm very particular about my clothing. I like my clothing which I wear in the UAE, and I took majority of the stuff I had, and I think everyone else did. But with regards to the winter wear, again, that varies from person to person. So I remember I just needed one thick jacket, which will keep me, you know, keep me warm and, you know, keep me, like, protect me from the cold. But then I think one important thing to keep in mind is that you have to consider the place where you are going. So for example, I headed to Preston, and Preston is not like a London or a Manchester. So you won't really get quality winter wear which will protect you from the UK's cold. So having that in mind, I remember I did buy my winter wear well in advance in Dubai, because I did not want to take a chance and go to a place like Preston, which is not like which is not well known. I didn't want to risk it and go there and find that the winter wear is not how I expected it to be. But if you are probably going to, like, let's say London or Manchester, where you know, the options of clothing you have are in huge amounts, in bulk, you have a variety of clothes and, you know, brands which you can try, then it would make sense to go there and buy, because you do have to remember with winter wear, it tends to be extremely bulky. So you have to keep in mind the place in which you are staying, and check whether they have shops over there where you can buy a decent amount of clothes. But in my personal experience, I did take all my food and clothing item. I barely brought anything over there in the UK in terms of clothes items. And food items, with regards to certain things like sugar, salt, oil, and your rice, those are things which you really can't control, and you probably are gonna have to buy it over there in the UK, because you can't really parcel this, because, you know, it could get spoiled and everything. uh, but I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it with regards to that question. Um, yeah, and also one thing, I think when I went in February, my friend and my parents were able to parcel and send a good amount of food containers, like ready-made packs. They were able to parcel it for a fairly reasonable price, and I think that saved us for a good solid month, because I remember I didn't need to cook that much in the month when I went back in February, because we did get a couple of stuff parceled to us to Preston, to where we stay. So I think that was one thing which I was super grateful for. So how did you make friends in first year, and were there any activities you got involved in? Right. So for me, I remember I left on, I think I arrived in the UK on the 12th of September, sorry, the 13th of September or 12th of September. I can't remember right now. And keeping in mind with my 14-day quarantine period, I could not be involved in any team building activities or any Freshers Week parties or any Freshers Week activities because of my quarantine period. I was unable to register for that, and the repercussions if I did register and get caught would be drastic. So I really didn't want to take a chance, and I personally didn't get involved in any activities. I do have a couple of friends who did go to the UK earlier than usual and were able to register for a lot of Freshers Week parties and a lot of team building activities, a lot of sporting activities, you know, in that initial week before your university kicks in and gets onto full swing. But I weren't part of anything. Now, with regards to how did I make friends in first year, believe this or not, as how creepy it sounds, you literally have to take a chance and start. So I remember one of my really close friends in the UK right now, I was able to become close friends with her because I think I created a Facebook account. I remember for 19 years of my life, I never had a Facebook account. I solely created one because my friends were telling me that your university does have a Facebook page. So for example, if you're doing like medicine, you do have 2020 UCLan medicine, like, yeah, UCLan medicine 2020 batch, or you have UCLan medicine 2021 batch. So by doing that, I was able to join my group which was for my cohort, and I did see like a number of people over there, and there were a couple of people like who post on Facebook. They were like, hi, my name is so and so, I look forward to meeting you all, do message me if do message me, I want to meet new people and everything. And as much as how creepy this might sound, it's just about randomly messaging people and taking a chance to get to know them, and dropping in like personal messages, sending personal messages to being them. So for example, I just be like, hi, my name's Keagan, I'm from the UAE and I'm a first year med as well. And you start to get to know them, because literally that was the only way my friend from my school over here, that's the only way we got a chance to really make friends as such. Because if it wasn't for doing that, I really don't see how was there any other opportunity to like make friends as such if you hadn't gone on Freshers Week and gone for any parties or something. But yeah, that was a huge issue, because I do know a lot of people in our cohort did have a problem, as they did not really have, I wouldn't say not have friends, but they didn't have a social support. They didn't get the chance to know people as well as they did, and it did take them a while to settle in and make friends. It was almost until January and February that I would literally say that they didn't make any friends, because there was no scope or no opportunity to making friends. Because if you're in a lockdown and you are not having any face-to-face classes, it is really challenging to make friends. And I know this might sound creepy, it's just waiting for the other person to message you because you're on the same cohort, because you're from the same country. That's literally the only chance you have taken. And but I think the one key thing to keep in mind is that, well, for me, my experience was that if you do make one or two friends and you do take that chance of messaging one or two people, I know this might sound really creepy and really strange, but I think once you do that, I think automatically things flow in, because you do form a group, and then with the group you can go meet other people and interact with other people. And yeah, I think just carry it on from there. So just messaging each other, dropping messages, or I think it's going to be a lot more easier this year when it's face-to-face classes. And if you do make it in time in the UK or any other country for Freshers Week, because that offers an easy socializing platform, I guess. But yes, it was very challenging for me, because I just had one face-to-face class every 2 weeks. And that was, so as a medical student, we did have clinical skills or clinical procedures, which we had to go to the university to perform. And yeah, that was one time where that was our only socializing opportunity, but that is very, very limited, because it's only for 2.5, 3 hours a week. And there's not really much you can do about that. So that's why when I came back in semester 2, it's like every moment I did get with my friends, I would chill with them, go out and have fun. But yeah, I mean, it's highly essential that you do message people and get to know them in the best possible way with purest of intentions. And I think then it just carries on from there. So yeah. Right. So did you face any imposter syndrome at university? Could someone please elaborate on this? Could this person elaborate as to what you mean by imposter syndrome? Or rather, I'd come back to that question if that's possible. Could someone please elaborate on imposter syndrome? What do you mean by imposter syndrome? Sorry, apologies for that. But yeah, was the change in cuisine easy for you to adapt to? Was the change in cuisine easy for you to adapt to? I wouldn't say so. With regards to food, I wasn't someone who really had a problem with food, because I was always like, I always like trying multiple cuisine out, and just different types of stuff, and with regardless of the culture and cuisine. So I have there's a variety of things I like. But obviously growing up in Dubai, being Indian, I remember eating my Indian curries and your vegetables and your rice, your roti, and your South Indian breakfast. I wouldn't say, actually, no, for me, it wasn't really that much of, I would say it was fairly simple, because in my semester 1, I did end up cooking a lot over there, a lot of home cooked food I had learned to make over there. Because I remember in year one, semester 1, when the studies hadn't kicked in and we weren't in full swing and we did not have that much exams, there was opportunity and there was a time and moment where you had the chance to cook and make dishes from scratch yourself. And every time I did get a chance to cook, I did cook all my favorites from back home. So I wouldn't say it was, I would still say with regards to the food situation and with regards to the cuisine, it was a bit easy for me to adapt to because I I kind of liked cooking by myself. I liked cooking on my own. I liked cooking my personal favorites, my favorite Indian dishes. And then when I did get tired of them, I did experiment with cuisines from different countries. So I remember there was this one time, yeah, obviously with your basics, I did make your Italian pastas, your Italian pizzas, and that's just very stereotypical, but I did enjoy it. So I think one thing which I think one of the key reasons why food wasn't a main issue for me was that I kept having a variety of dishes, and I kept cooking like different varieties of cuisines. Like I remember I cooked Chinese once, I cooked like your fried rice and your Manchurian, and even when you do decide to eat out, I am a huge fan of eating out, and the British cuisine over there, where be it your fish and chips, and I know this is Irish, but your bangers and mash, which you do tend to get a lot over there. These are my favorites because when I do go out to other countries, I used to go and eat these dishes as well. So it wasn't that difficult for me to adapt to the change in cuisine, but those people who are, I would say, particular about what they eat or what they like to eat, I think my advice to you is take your time off and buy your necessary ingredients and your essentials. Get your preferred ingredients, which you probably feel you may not get in the UK or your other countries. Get them from your home and do take time off and learn these dishes when you are back home. Cook them on a regular basis so that when you do go to university, you can cook them whenever you do get your free time, and that could be your lunch or your dinner. And the transition from when you go from your home country to your university, with regards to food at least, it will be a lot more simpler and easier. So yeah, sorry, just give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm just okay. So getting back to the question about did you face any imposter syndrome at university? I, I think we all did face it at some point, because there comes a time where you feel that you're not competent enough, or you feel that you don't belong there, or you feel that probably the people in your cohort and the people, for example, doing medicine are a lot smarter than you, and have a much more understanding of you. You do tend to think about it, you do tend to question it, because especially for a first year medical student at UCLan, I was someone who had just finished my A levels and had directly jumped into my first year of medicine. However, the other people in my cohort, I can just tell you all this. I have a friend who's 37, or I would say, no, I wouldn't even say a friend, someone from my cohort who I became friends with. She is 37 years old. She has 3 kids, and she's worked in the NHS for 15 years and has more medical knowledge than anyone else. I think even more than our professors. So when you start talking to them and interacting with them and getting to know them, it does become a bit of a challenge, and you do tend to question yourself, like, okay, is it worth me being here? Am I smart enough to do this? And am I competent enough to compete at this level? So you do have that, but then I think it's just extremely important that you keep your head down, focus, and do what you've been doing since school. But I know this might sound so stereotypical at this point, but just put in your hard work, but more importantly, work smart and identify as to how to learn a good amount in a specific period of time, and just go about it. Take it a step at a time, take it a day at a time, and you'll soon realize that you do fit in, you do deserve to be here along with everyone else in your cohort, because you have worked your socks off to get to where you are. And yes, initially it will feel a bit intimidating, it will feel a bit challenging, but then eventually you will get accustomed to life in med school, or whatever course you are doing. You will get settled in, and you will realize that you do deserve a place here. So initially you do get thoughts of imposter syndrome, but then I'm sure after a while it does get better. It does get better, and that fear would go away. So yeah. How would you go about opening a student bank account in the UK? Does the university assist you with the process, or do you have to do it yourself? All right, so that's a very interesting question. That's a very, very good question. And I think I was about to get to that. So I think to answer that, I would just go to my PowerPoint back again, 1 second. So, like I said, be ready for change. And that involves being independent. And when it comes to being independent, I have literally written over here, as you can see, bank account. So what do I mean by that? So I have a separate slide for bank accounts over here. So this is just a gist of the couple of bank accounts which are present in the UK. So you have your HSBC, you have your NatWest, you have your Barclays, you have Royal Bank of Scotland, you have Nationwide, you have Santander, and you have Monzo. Now, I think what I would like to say is the bank account which I have amongst all of these, in the UK, I have a Santander bank account and I have a Monzo bank account. Now, I think bank account is bank accounts is probably one of the most important things I would like to stress about in this uh, in this webinar, because when you do go to the UK, please do make this a priority of setting up a bank account. I felt I didn't need to set up a bank account, because when I did go to the UK, my parents did send me £1,000, £1,000 of liquid cash with me. And that was enough for the entire year, because that one single transaction of £1,000, which I carried in liquid cash from the UK, from Dubai in September to the UK, that was enough to last me till June. However, that is a bit of a risk, because you are indeed having £1,000 in liquid cash. You are having it, and that always does, like, let's say, for example, it does get lost or it does get stolen. It always does possess, a bit of a threat, and, it is a bit of a conflicting issue, and it is risky carrying that much cash. And because I did feel that I had that £1,000 in cash, I really never felt that I needed a bank account. However, please, everyone going to the UK or wherever you do decide to go, be it Canada or US or anywhere else, please open a bank account on an urgent basis, not only because it gives you the chance for your parents to transfer money and for you to withdraw that money and use it and for financial purposes, but also because of background checks, because of DBS checks, and because of, so basically when you do open a bank account, it does give you your bank statement. When you have it posted it to you, it will give a form of proof of address or proof of location or proof of household. And that is extremely important when you do decide to go on placements. This could be medical placements. This could be placements with regards to a big company. I have a friend who is doing accountancy at University of Nottingham, and he wasn't able to go for his placements because they were unable to carry out a DBS check, because he didn't have a third document where it requires a bank statement, and he couldn't obtain that bank statement because he doesn't have a UK bank account which shows proof of address. So that's one thing which I just want to say to everyone over here: do open a bank account on an urgent basis. Now, answering the question as to how do you go about opening a student bank account. So out of all the banks which I have mentioned, okay, sorry, let me just answer as to, does the university assist you with the process? Yes, the university does assist you with the process. So for UCLan, for example, I had to fill in this form, and it gives you 3 letters. You do have a council tax exemption letter, and well, 2 letters: council tax exemption letter, and along with that you get a bank letter from the university. When you do land, or even before you do land in the UK, please apply for this bank letter. It's a letter from your university stating that you so and so are a medical student or a student at their university, and that you are eligible to open a bank account. So do request this service, the service of a bank letter from your university, and they will provide you within 2 or 3 working days. You do have to fill in a form before that, and they will supply you the letter with regards to the bank account. Once you do that, then you can go ahead and open your UK bank account. So all the university So the university does two things with regards to helping you open a bank account. It provides you a bank letter, number one, and it does recommend the bank accounts you can open. But that, to be honest, can be done by anyone. Like, I'm just recommending it to you right now. But the one main thing it does is it provides you with a letter saying that you are a student at the university and you are eligible for a bank account. So do apply on their website or call them and ask, how do you go about the process? It's usually on their website. It's a service which you request, and then you can go ahead and do it. Now, with how do you go about opening a student bank account in the UK? So you have multiple banks here. You have HSBC, you have NatWest, you have Barclays, you have all these different banks, and obviously each one is entitled. You can choose your bank. Each one has its benefits and advantages, disadvantages. So each bank has its advantages and disadvantages based on my personal experience. This is my personal experience, and this is what I saw from my friends in Preston. Do please avoid HSBC, because HSBC, the amount of verification checks it needs to do and the time in which it takes for you to get your bank account, it's extremely stressful, and it does take an extremely long time to get an HSBC bank account. So when I first went there in the UK in September, I had a lot of people from my cohort, from my friend circle, and all were trying to open an HSBC bank account because it's well renowned and everyone knows it. And I remember for the longest time, I had a lot of my friends making constant trips to the bank just because they always needed some sort of different document or some sort of different verification checks. And it took some of my friends the longest time ever to get back to them. It took almost like 6 to 7 months for them to open an HSBC bank account. And I didn't bother opening one because I've heard how difficult and challenging it is to open an HSBC bank account. Other than that, I do have a lot of friends who have opened a Barclays account, which does take a fair decent amount of time, but yeah. The bank which I went for, which I found extremely convenient and which I was a fan of, and I just liked everything about this bank, was Santander. I think I think in Preston, in UCLan, majority of my friends who are in my cohort and just generally all stuck with Santander, because I don't know, I just found the bank a lot more trustworthy. And as a first year medical student, someone who has not even lived in the UK for a year, yet alone a month or 3 months, I think Santander does have a student account which is reasonable, and you do get a debit card along with that. And more than anything, they do it in a very short time frame. They provide you with your debit card and they open your bank account in a very short time frame, and the verification checks are a lot easier. The documents which they ask for are a lot easier as well, because when you do open your bank account, you do keep in mind that you do need your passport copy, and you also do need your BRP, which is your British residence permit, which you will get when you go there. And the documents which Santander asks for is fairly reasonable, and you do tend to have all those documents in hand when you are opening the bank account. So Santander was one which I opened, and I do possess a Santander bank account. And yeah, I think that's about it. But one thing which I really do want to lay stress on is two things. When you do get to the UK, obviously you have a lot to do in terms of obtaining a SIM card and everything. But I think the three things which are of me like the utmost importance, and I would still lay stress on, is getting your SIM card, obviously, so you can make calls and messages, getting your SIM card, getting your BRP, because without your British residence permit, you will not be able, so for example, if you do not get your British residence permit, you will be allowed to leave the country to go back, let's say, for example, from UK to Dubai, but you will not be able to enter the country back again. So as soon as you reach the UK, please make it a point, please make it a priority to get your BRP at all cost. With that, once you do obtain your BRP, do open a bank account, because sooner or later, for be it you're in medicine or you are doing any sort of course, for placements or for anything, two things which they do a lot of is occupational health checks and DBS checks. So it's disclosure and bearing services. It's basically to check that you are you and that you're not an imposter or you're not someone else. So they do a lot of verification checks and identity checks. And for that, having a bank account which gives proof of address is highly important. And for me, I feel it's essential that you open a bank account at all costs. But yeah, the university does help you with the letter, and then just keep this on priority when you do land in the UK. So how do you go about performing occupational checks? Do you have to pay for these services? So with regards to, okay, so it's not occupational checks, it's occupational health checks. So don't worry about this. Number one, you do not have to pay for these services. This is purely conducted by the universities themselves. So what they do is, for example, for medical students, obviously you're going to be going on placements, and uh, you will be exposed to a lot of diseases and a lot of bacteria, a lot of viruses, and it's the occupational health hazard you have when you are in a hospital. However, you do have to keep in mind that when the point of occupational health checks is to ensure that you are in a you're physically and mentally fit, and you are up to date with all your vaccinations before you do go on medical placements. And you don't need to pay for these services. This is purely organized and arranged by the university. They do give you a date because of for example, with regards to UCLan, where you have 220 people in my cohort. Just ensure that you do fill in the required forms and the necessary forms. You fill in all important essential details beforehand, and when you do all of that, they then provide you a date where you do have to go to the closest hospital, and then they will perform the necessary health checks. So they will take a blood test, they will measure your temperature, they will measure your blood pressure, and they will take like a full medical history, and they will take your full medical background to see that you are qualified, you're physically and mentally qualified, and that you have the ability to be a doctor. So for example, if you are not provided with, you do have to keep in mind that you have people coming from all over the world. And I can give you an example where I've had a couple of friends coming from Botswana, which is in southern, it's pretty close to South Africa. It's in the southern region of Africa, and their vaccination program is a bit different from what we have in the UAE. So I remember there was one thing where I had this friend from Botswana, and she was provided, I think the only vaccination she did have was her meningitis vaccine, and she wasn't on she hasn't taken her hepatitis B and hepatitis C vaccine or something like that, and they had to place her on a special vaccination program where she had to be given the hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and the Hep B booster vaccine as well. Whereas I had to be placed on my meningitis vaccine because I hadn't taken that yet and I needed it. So basically, they identified the different types of people that what each of them require. And for example, I have atopic dermatitis, which is a skin condition, which is eczema, which it tends to flare up in cold countries and everything. So they had to make sure that I personally was on top of that, because it does leave me more susceptible to infection, bacterial infection, and just more common health conditions because of pores in my skin. So they had to ensure that I am constantly moisturizing my skin and that I am on top of things with regards to my eczema. So you don't need to pay for these services. You don't need to do anything. You just need to fill in forms when your university does require you to fill in. They will send you an email of forms that you will need to fill in, and you just do your job of filling in those forms, and then they will automatically give you a date where you do an occupational health check. And if you do require any type of vaccinations or any sort of injections or any other health checks in particular, they will notify you through post or through email. So just ensure that you're on top of it with regards to that. And I think another thing to keep in mind is that along with your emails, it is highly essential that you do check your PO box as well, your post. So in your own accommodation, you will have a PO box, and it's essential to check it on daily basis, because with regards to your bank letters and with regards to any letters received from hospitals or from the health checkup centers in the UK, they will send you documents and letters through post. So it's important that every day you do check your PO box, write down your accommodation or wherever it is located. So yeah. What subjects did you undertake the first year of med school? Also, which books did you use? Right. So sorry, just give me one second. Yeah. So what subjects did you undertake the first year of med school? Also, which books did you use? So I didn't use any books. Throughout my entire year one med, I did not use a single book. I'm not saying that you don't need to require books, but with regards to UCLAN, so wait, let me explain the subjects that I undertake. So in UCLAN, you have 6 blocks. So you have your core block, you have your MSK, which is your musculoskeletal system, you have your cardiorespiratory system, you have your gastrointestinal system, you have your neuro block, which is your neuroendocrine block, which is more to do with your brain, and you have your urogenital block. So these are the 6 blocks, and now these are the 6 blocks which you cover. So this is basically the entire human body. And in these 6 blocks, you have anatomy, you have biochemistry, you have physiology, you have immunology, you have hematology, you have radiology, you have microbiology, you have pharmacology. So what they do is, for example, if you're taking the cardiorespiratory block, which is your heart and your lungs, so you have your anatomy. So you learn your heart anatomy, you have your lung anatomy. Along with that, you have your hematology. So it talks about the blood and the components of blood, and with regards to blood clotting, with regards to the heart and the lungs. Then you have your immunology. So it talks about your white blood cells and your B helper cells, your T helper cells, and how they are involved in how they relate, how they're related to the heart, the lungs, and then with regards to your spleen and your thymus, and it all brings it all together. And then you have your microbiology. So it talks about the different types of bacteria which lead to different infectious diseases with regards to the heart and your lungs. Then when it comes to your pharmacology, it deals with drugs, it deals with antihypertensives, antiarrhythmics. These are different types of drugs which people with heart conditions take, with high blood pressure, with low blood pressure, with irregular heartbeats. Then, for example, you have anticoagulants. These types of drugs which deal with blood clotting. There are some types of drugs which increase the chances of blood clotting. There are some types of drugs which decrease the chance of blood clotting. And then with regards to lungs, some drugs which help deal with asthma. There are some drugs which help, deal with asthmatic patients. So this comes under pharmacology. And then you have radiology. So that's to do with X-ray, CT scans, MRIs, and, with regards to the heart and the lungs. So like that, you cover up in each of the blocks. So in MSK, musculoskeletal, where you can cover up the anatomy of the upper limb and the lower limb. And it's just the entire same thing. So am I missing out anything? Yeah, okay. And then you have pathology. So pathology is when you have conditions. So in the other blocks, you learn about the bacteria. Like, for example, in microbiology, you learn about bacteria and viruses affecting that system in the body. But then when it comes to pathology, you learn about different conditions or rare genetic conditions with regards to that particular part of the body. So if you're doing neuropathology, it's to do with, rare conditions that affect your brain and your central nervous system, basically. So yeah, I think this is just a brief overview of the subjects that you do undertake in first year of med school with regards to the science block. We also do tend to have our EPOM. So this is called evidence informed practice of medicine. So in that, these are more of your softer subjects where you have your medical law, you have your biostatistics, you have psychology, sociology, and you have your epidemiology. So this is to do with just health statistics, health laws that are in place. What, as a doctor, what laws apply to you, what laws apply to your patient. And yeah, with regards to the psychology and sociology, from a human's health point of view, in the mental aspect, how it deals with that and how that can have an effect on a person's health. So we do have a separate block with regards to that. I don't know whether other universities do have that. I know they have medical biostatistics, but with regards to the psychology and sociology of medicine, I think that's something which varies from university to university. And yeah, those 2 blocks aside, you do have your OSCEs as well, which is basically it's called MSQC, which is your medical skills and quality care. So you learn your different types of procedures and your examinations required. So for example, you learn your cardiovascular systems examination, you learn your respiratory examination, you have your abdominal examination. So you learn, and then you learn how to give injections, you learn how to withdraw blood, and then sooner or later you will learn about venipuncture, you will learn about cannulation. And these are different types of procedures that you are required to know as a first and second year medical student. So I think these are the main things that you cover up in your first year of med school with regards to your subjects. It does vary from med school to med school, but it's almost pretty much similar. But there are a few variations here and there. But yeah, this is in a nutshell. And with regards to books, eh, you can. So, for example, I do have a friend who is from India, and she has both of her parents as doctors, and her parents were able to provide her with books that they used back in their day. I mean, there are books which you can buy online and you can get from the library to enhance your understanding or broaden your knowledge. But I think one thing which I find really useful is that whatever the university supplies to you in your PowerPoint or in the notes or the lecture notes that they send or which the lecturers provide, I find that is more than useful enough. Yes, you can use YouTube, you can use Google, you can use specific websites, and you can use books from the library to enhance your knowledge and gain a deeper understanding if you do not understand a specific topic or a specific lecture. But I think majority of it is just viewing it on PowerPoints or whatever they do send on Blackboard, which is an app where all your lectures are stored and all your important Word documents and PowerPoints are stored. So you can use books, but there was no books that I particularly used or any books that I particularly recommend. But yeah, I would just say stick to the PowerPoint. And if there's anything you don't understand, then yeah, you can resort to any sort of books. So yeah. Thanks for the valuable feedback. Please also inform on the student visa application process and your experience. Any special requirements or precaution to be taken? Thanks. I would, with regards to the student visa application process, it's been a while. It's exactly been a year since I had applied for it and everything. The thing is, I had an education consultant which had gone through the entire visa application process with me. So I'm not 100% sure about all the documents. I know you do require, in a nutshell, I remember you do require a bank statement and you do require your first year tuition fee plus 10,000 British pounds extra in an untouched bank account for up to 3 months uh, to show as, proof of financial capability that you are able to fund your living expenditures and your first term tuition fee for 1 year, because you do have to show plus 10,000 extra to show that you are able to cover up your living, like your cost of living, and you do need to show 12,000 extra if you do decide to stay in London. But yeah, you need to have that untouched bank account for at least 3 months to show the UK agency, to show the UK border force and border control and the people in charge of issuing your visa that you do have the financial capability to fund your education and your living fees. So that's one thing which is extremely important with regards to your bank statement. That aside, I think my one advice to everyone over here is, obviously I don't know what schools are like, with regards to grades and everything right now with quarantine and, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But my one advice to you is, once you do meet your grade requirements and once you do achieve your required necessary grades, please make it a priority before you even go to the UK. As soon as you get your grades, please apply for your CAS letter, because I was fortunate enough that I was able to wait around, I think, a day or two for my CAS letter, which is honestly priceless. But I have some friends who have waited for almost as long as a month for their CAS letter. So please be on top of this and ensure that you get your CAS letter on top priority on an urgent basis, because this is highly essential and highly important that you get your CAS letter as soon as possible. Because and get your visa process as soon as you get your CAS letter, continue with the rest of your visa process and submit all the necessary documents to BFS. But no any special requirement or precaution you take. I think all of it is there on the BFS website, and if you do have your education consultants to guide you, they will have a list of everything necessary and everything required for your visa application process. There's nothing else which sticks out. It's just that once you do get your CAS letter, just be on top of things and ensure you speed everything up, because the time between from when you get your CAS letter, from when you get your results and your CAS letter to when you leave is extremely short. So be on top of things from day one. So yeah. How did you travel around campus and city as for a first-time traveler who wouldn't know what is where? So again, this answer would vary from person to person. More importantly, this answer would vary from which city you are in. So for example, my personal experience was when I was in Preston. Preston is comparatively a small city, and the place which is furthest away is, let's say, I mean, Preston as a city, the place which is furthest away, I would say, is a 30-minute walk. And I know that sounds long, but when you're in the UK and the weather is cold and, you know, it's not like Dubai, it's not 45 degrees, you can walk anywhere and you can walk and explore the city. And wherever you do need to go, every place is max a 25-minute walk away. But yes, there are times maybe if you feel tired or you really don't want to walk or the weather is a bit hotter than usual, you do have your taxi services. So obviously it's not like Dubai where you have just like Dubai Taxi and Hala Taxi. You do have multiple taxi companies. So it's not government owned. It's like each place has its own taxi business or multiple taxi businesses. So you can Google and you can find that out. And taxi is definitely one way which you can commute from one place to the other. But as much as you can, try avoiding it, because when I was in Preston being a small city, we used to walk majority of the time. You do have your buses over there, but I haven't really taken a bus, so I'm not really familiar with it. It depends from place to place. So with regards to Preston, we never really traveled by bus or taxi that much. Occasionally we did take a taxi. So yeah, that's about it, because in Preston, with the weather being so beautiful and everything being like a short way away, like maximum a place would be 25-30 minutes away, but majority of the places are like a 10-15 minute walk. We used to walk as much as we can. We used to walk all the time unless we were really tired and it was really late in the night, or maybe we have, like, let's say for example, we probably have had like a party or we've been drinking and we really don't want to walk that late in the night, because for safety reasons and for our personal reasons, whether we like at that state of mind to walk back home, then I think we probably take a taxi or anything, but we don't make it a regular habit, I would say. There are buses everywhere in the UK, whichever city you are in, but I hadn't taken that, so I wouldn't really comment on that. If you are traveling around from city to city, I think this is one thing which is very important, especially for a medical student. You do tend to go on placements. So for example, I lived in Preston and I had my placements in Blackpool and I had it in Burnley as well. So for that, I remember I had to commute by train quite a lot. So I do, if you do realize that you are going to commute and travel to different types of places, or for example, if you're in the airport and you do need to go to a specific place, like for example, those who are going to like Sheffield or Leeds or Preston, or well, in the heart of Manchester city centre, for example, and you do tend to find yourself in Manchester airport, please, it's extremely essential that you do download the app. It's called Trainline, and when you do have the Trainline app, you can book your train tickets and find this app called Trainline, and you can book your train tickets and commute from one place to the other. So it's very essential. It's very important that you have it. And now that I think about it, I apologize because I haven't traveled by bus in Preston, which is the city that I'm based, but I have had to take a bus in Blackpool and Burnley to get from the train station to the hospital where I was placed. So with regards to that, that's fairly straightforward. You have multiple bus stops and you just need to know which buses you need to take when you're traveling from one place to the other. So I think that's about it. That you have to figure out on the spot when you're over there, when you do go for your placements. But yeah, I think getting around the city, getting around the campus is fairly straightforward. I think it's easy to walk and explore. Please do ensure that you do have your data so you can navigate using Google Maps. And that aside, just ensure that before you do land in the UK, be it Birmingham, be it Newcastle, be it London, be it Manchester, that you do download the Trainline app, because you will need that app with you. It's called Trainline. You will need that to commute from, let's say, the airport from where you land to where you are, like to where you want to travel to, which is your accommodation or the city that you are based in. So yeah. Which are the things you had to carry to the UK apart from clothes and food ingredients? Just your essentials, to be honest, whatever you find important. So this could be your clothes, this could be your winter wear, your ingredients, your toiletries, your socks, underwear. I wouldn't say, I mean, there's nothing in particular, anything that stands out. I think these are the main things, your clothes and your food ingredients. But obviously you do have certain things which you feel you cannot live without. For example, you may need to take your, for example, like a pillowcase or a bedding, or like a mattress, or, you know, mattress covering. So I wouldn't say, I think this answer also varies from person to person, because there's nothing particular which stands out, which is like, I would say this is something which you need to take. But I think these are the two main things, which is your clothes and your food ingredients. These are your essentials. The rest you can still buy from the UK in your shops and restaurants over there. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything else which stands out. Your toiletries, your deodorants, your perfumes, probably an ethnic wear for maybe a cultural night in your university. But again, that is subject to COVID as well. But I wouldn't say anything in particular that stands out. It's each person's personal preference. So yeah. What did you do to prepare for medical school the summer before? Any particular online courses? Right. So exactly a year ago, I was in each and every one of your shoes. And this was a question which I pondered on a daily basis. And I think the one advice which I got from second and third year medical students, to even professors in UCLan Medical University as well, is to rest, relax, use this time off and just enjoy yourself. And I feel that was useful advice. But then at the same time, really wish that I did use my summer more productively, because I think one of my biggest advice to any med student before joining med school as to what to do during that summer would be to revisit your A-level biology and have your A-level biology concepts spot on. Because like, for example, when you're going through your A-level biology, you do have your specific chapters on muscle coordination, on homeostasis, or it could be with regards to homeostasis, when you cover parts of the kidney, and then you have your sliding filament theory and your muscle coordination, and with basically how your action potentials get passed on from uh, how your action potentials travel, and your nodes of Ranvier and all of that sort of stuff. I remember I hadn't touched it for around 3 months since my school had ended, and I had forgotten all my important concepts with regards to muscle contraction and the sliding filament theory. And then when I came to university, it was a little bit hazy for me, and I remember I did have to revisit my A-level biology to a good amount before I could proceed to what more they had to teach us. And then with regards to your oxidative phosphorylation and your respiration chapter, where you learn about your Krebs cycle, your glycolytic cycle, and when you're covering up stuff with regards to your acetylcholine, and just each and every step in those cycles which we learned in respiration, you do need to have your basics right before you proceed on, because when you do come to med school, they will add more and more steps as to what we know, because of what we learned in school was just a small part of it, and they do tend to add more cycles and more chemicals and more energy sources that are required in the Krebs cycle, in the glycolytic cycle, and in oxidative phosphorylation. So yeah, I'd probably say one of my biggest advice is to be revisit A-level biology. And for those people who have taken physics in A-levels, I think I would highly recommend you to go through medical imaging, go through the working and the functionings of CT scans, your MRIs, your X-rays, your coronary angiograms. Just go through the functioning and how it works, because I find that extremely, extremely essential. And I think, again, I would say just go through your A-level subjects. And with regards to your A-level chemistry, I would feel it's extremely important to go through certain concepts with regards to organic chemistry, I would say, especially when it comes to your chiral centers, and when it comes to, your L dimers, your D dimers, and, because when you learned about how important chirality is with regards to drugs and its functioning, you will learn about it a lot more in detail in your pharmacology, and the functioning of how the drug mechanisms basically, and you will relate your drug mechanisms a lot to your organic chemistry, your cis trans isomerism and everything. So I feel all of this was a bit hazy for me when I joined med school, and I think I remember I really had to go through my A-level notes and my AS level notes all over again a bit before you proceed to what the professors teach you over there, because you will learn a lot more about it in detail, especially in pharmacology. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest advice as to how would you prepare for med school in the summer before. How did you start to manage your time well, especially as you are alone in a foreign country with a grand range from going through high school to college level academics? You don't have your parents around to help you with this. So that's one thing which I keep telling people from time to time, is that you are in another country and you have the freedom and liberty to do what you want, and you don't even have your teachers around you to spoon feed you and be behind your back nagging you every single day. So that tends to be a bit I wouldn't say overwhelming at times. It tends to be a real added advantage over there, and it seems like, something which makes you happy at that time. But you do have to keep in mind as to remember the key reason why you are over there and why you are going to university. It's to do your studies, and it's up to you personally to organize your time and organize your energy and organize how you go about your day. That's up to you. That's up to you, and that's something which you got to get right from day one. Yes, you are in another country, you are exposed to different types of lifestyles and culture, and you are making new friends, which is really, really good. And it does tend to get fun, and you do will have your fun times, and it does get interesting. But it's extremely important to get the balance right, especially for med students. You will have times where you will, like, I wouldn't recommend that you stay out partying the entire time, nor would I recommend you staying indoors and studying 24/7, because that will eventually lead to a burnout and you will end up grasping nothing. So it's very, very important to get your balance right. And how did I manage my time initially? It keeps changing from time to time, because I remember, as when it came closer to my exam time, I really didn't care whether I was burnt out or not, because you have to cram things in your brain regardless of how you feel. And that did get a bit intimidating for me. That did get a bit challenging for me. But yeah, initially you do have time to plan and space yourself in such a way where you can study for a good amount of time and take regular frequent breaks. Go for walks, go for like an evening coffee, or go for a walk to a park. Or maybe if you want, you can chill in the night, or you study the entire day and then you go and chill in the night, maybe go for a drink with your friends, or just have a dinner with your friends. Maybe you can cook with them, maybe you can have a game night, you can have a movie night, you can go for a late night walk. So it keeps changing from person to person, place to place. And you just have to keep in mind, like, when you're in school, you really don't have your parents around here. You can do whatever you like. You can move at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning as well, and no one's there to say no. But it's up for you. It's up for you to remember when to take the risks and when to not, and when to say no to people, when to get your priorities right. So yeah, that's something which you have to figure out when you are over there, and you have to get used to as soon as possible. So yeah. Would you recommend living on campus for the entire duration of your course, or is moving out from your second year better? I think my personal recommendation to people, this is what I did, was I stayed on campus the first year. And well, in Preston, everything is fairly close by. But in my first year, I did stay on campus in a UCAT-based accommodation. And then in my second year, I have moved out to a student accommodation. It's called it's a student accommodation, but it's not really owned by UCLan. It's outside the campus, and it's a bit further away from the campus. But it keeps varying from person to person. It depends from person to person what would they prefer. But my advice to first years would be to stay on campus for 1 year, just to be on the safe side, before you do decide to move out. And before you do decide to move out. So yeah. One second. So what is the process of obtaining a BRP? So your BRP is your British residence permit. So while you are applying for your visa process, which is your UK visa, you do get a vignette. It's called a vignette, which you do get, which is your original visa stamp you do get on your passport, and that is what gives you entry into the United Kingdom in the first place. So once you do get that, it does take a bit of a time for your BRP to get processed, and you will get an email stating that it is ready at a specific time period. When it is ready, you do have to remember which is the place allocated for your collection of your BRP. So most likely, this will either be the post office of the city you are based in, If not, it is most likely going to be your university. So I had friends in the UK at that time who had given, some of them had given the university and some of them had given the post office. When you do give the collection point as the post office in your city, you do have to keep in mind that you do have to take your passport and some sort of identification document with you. So this could be your passport, or this could be the Vinicate stamp that which you have obtained. So along with that, you do have to get any sort of bank statements or any bank accounts details which you do have with you. But this is with regards to collection from the required post office. However, I had given my collection point as my university. However, my university was closed due to COVID-19. So they did have to do a verification check on a Zoom call with me and ask me some sort of personal questions with regards to my address. And I did have to obtain and give some sort of proof of address as to show them that it is me and that I am valid in the UK, that I am present in the UK, and that I'm no sort of imposter. And then eventually they posted my BRP to me and I was able to collect it. So yeah, so it really depends from where you are from place to place. So yeah, it could be when you are, it really depends whether you're on the post office, whether you have your collection point as your post office or whether you have your collection point as your university. So yeah. So 1 second. So is medical insurance provided for, or do we have to get it ourselves? So you do tend to pay a certain amount while you are applying for your visa with regards to medical insurance. And when you are over there in the UK, you do have to keep in mind that you have to register with a GP, the closest hospital to you and the closest GP to you. Now, this is usually recommended by the university or by people in your cohort. And you have to keep in mind that this GP, you can change your GP if you want to, but do keep in mind that you need to book an appointment as soon as you can and as soon as possible, because the waiting periods and the waiting time is extremely long to get an appointment in the UK. But I think along with, just like I've said before in the previous questions, along with your bank accounts, along with your SIM card, and along with your collection of your BRP, please do make it a point to register with the NHS and that you have your assigned GP with you. So if anything were to go wrong, you would be able to book an appointment as soon as possible. So yeah. I think the next question is, do you recommend taking notes digitally? If so, is it worth getting an iPad, tablet? It would also be useful. You could suggest some apps for note taking, making flashcards. Thanks. So obviously, as a med student, I'm pretty sure, as future med students, I'm pretty sure you are aware of Anki flashcards and Quizlet. So these are two places with which regards you can make important notes on, or like with regards to the flashcard technique. Anki and Quizlet are probably the two most important sites with regards to this. You can do that. However, I think with taking notes digitally, I think that changes or varies from person to person. So there are three options or three things which I have seen in university with regards to med students. So you have had some people who are extremely old-fashioned and do tend to write down everything on a book and write down important notes and essential notes, and do tend to resort to writing everything down they get from, be it lectures to be it small things that professors say on a daily basis. So there are people who do write down on pen and paper. Then you have some people who do tend to type out everything on notes. So who tend to type out everything that they, sorry, excuse me. Sorry, I apologize. So there are some times when you can take notes and type all your necessary notes down on Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, which is what I did. So like I said before, our professors do release their PowerPoints on Blackboard beforehand, or maybe before or after the lectures. That keeps varying. And when you do download that PPT, I think it's extremely important and extremely essential that you write your own findings or your own research down. You download that PPT and save it on your desktop, and you do write down important points just below that, just below the PowerPoint. That's something which I did, and I personally myself question how important or how useful it was at that time. I still am evaluating, but majority of the people, so there are two methods. So these are the two methods which I just mentioned. One is using your pen and paper, and the other one is typing whatever you collect on a daily basis on notes. But yes, majority of the people over there with their Apple tablet and with their Apple Pencil, they keep writing and they keep annotating their diagrams and writing notes using their Apple Pencil on the side. So I wouldn't recommend it, but I can definitely tell you all that out of a cohort of 220 people, majority of them do have an iPad or a tablet, and along with that their Apple Pencil, where they do tend to write majority of their notes with their downloaded PPT, so that whatever is annotated, they can continuously keep revisiting it on a daily basis. So yeah. And with regards to some apps from note taking, I did have my friend who did make all his notes on Notepad, but I think I went old school, and I think I made majority of my important notes on Microsoft Word. And when you do decide to go to med school, I think it's highly essential that you start using Anki flashcards on a daily basis. And at the same time, it's very important to make your flashcards very clear and concise, that you don't make it extremely long. But yeah, I think that's one of my biggest advice, that your flashcards be short and precise. I mean, you don't make them very long. So yeah. Any tips on how to remember the course material? Right, so I think I'm just going to get back to my PowerPoint for 1 second. These are, I think, sorry, just give me 1 second. All right, so these are, I think, probably a few things which I wanted to share with you all. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. Right, so these are the most important study techniques I feel, or few of them which I can mention or notably think about. So one of the most important things is, after you do learn something on a particular day, please review your study material on a regular basis, or commonly known as active recall. This is probably the study technique which I laid the most emphasis on over my first year, and I would recommend each and everyone over here that active recall is one of the most important study techniques, especially for a first year med student. So the need to study regularly is just one piece of advice I can give you guys, because more than studying regularly, I think recalling a particular topic or a particular concept which you have done is also essential, because you cannot afford to forget it over a longer period of time, because maybe there was something which you had 100% understanding of or 100% grasp of by September, but then come May you have completely forgotten about that. So it's highly essential that throughout the year you do go over it, or make time to go over lectures that you have covered again and again and again. So for example, when I was in my MSK block, which is your musculoskeletal block, when you're learning the anatomy of the upper limb, and when you have like a lot of bones, muscles, your lymphatics, and you have your neurovascular structures to remember, which is your blood vessels, your arteries, your veins, your capillaries, you have particular names, and you have a lot of names to remember. This could be with regards to your upper limb and your lower limb. You have your superficial and your deep compartments. So there's a lot to learn from September to May, and that's why I feel to continuously revisit and go through lectures over and over again, it's extremely important. Write it down, write majority of the stuff, write certain stuff down which you feel that it's difficult to remember and that you're having trouble memorizing it. It's extremely important to write it down and just note the stuff which is important, because sometimes it proves to be more essential than typing it down or probably writing it using your Apple Pencil on a tablet. I think it's extremely important to create an effective learning environment. So sometimes if you do feel tired and drained from studying in one room the entire time, please do make it a point, if you can, maybe perhaps you can go to the park and learn. Maybe you can go to the library and learn. And I think that's one thing which I found extremely effective, was learning in a library, because when you are in a learning environment like that, where everyone is focused and everyone is quiet, I think it does benefit you greatly. It definitely did benefit me greatly, because along with studying in the library, I did have a very good study group. So when I mean study group, was we never really discussed and shared question and answers on a regular basis. It's just that we were all together in the same room doing, working towards the same cause, which is acing our exams and doing well in our exams. So I think creating that effective learning environment was very important and very essential for all of us. And just use visual. I think this is something which you all have come across quite often, is to use visual aids. Use flashcards. You can use handmade flashcards. Maybe if not, if you don't want to use your computer, use handmade flashcards. And mnemonics are very important. So with abbreviations, and especially when it comes to microbiology, when you have like bacteria names to learn, which is extremely long and extremely difficult to pronounce, please do consider using mnemonics, because I find them extremely important. So yeah, one second. So yeah, I think this is also, yeah, so any tips on how to remember the course material? So again, this is one answer which I can recommend you as much as I can, but then again, it is all purely based on what suits you at that same time. And I think there's also one thing which you can do, is study a specific, so for example, let's say you're doing the anatomy of the upper limb and you're going through the bones of the upper limb, and you remember everything, let's say in like an hour or so, and you are confident. I would say is distracting yourself at that specific time, doing something completely different. Could be probably cooking, or maybe watching a TV show, or maybe going out to play a sport, and then coming back an hour later and seeing how much you remember. So it's active recall and distracting yourself. There's long-term active recall and short-term active recall. Regardless, whenever and however you do it, is that you are constantly revisiting it over and over again, that sooner or later it will be stuck in your brain and you will remember majority of it. So yeah, this is my key tip, or my pro tip, what I used in my first year. I really didn't resort to mnemonics, but I promised myself that I will try when it does come to second year. So yeah. And also, yeah, sorry, before I move on to other, like any other tips on how to remember the course material, I think it's very important. Yeah, I think I mentioned about, forming a study group. Obviously, when you're in a large group, you tend to focus a lot more, and you tend to strive strive more based on the other people around you, because you see them working equally hard. And I think it's a psychological thing where you tend to remember more, and you tend to focus and concentrate more, and you are less likely to avoid a burnout, because you are with your friends, you are surrounded by your friends, you are with them all the time. These are people you truly love and care about, and you have developed a good rapport and friendship with. So when you're studying with them and you're all in one room fighting for one cause, which is to clear your year and do the best you possibly can, doing it with the people who are your support system over there, I feel it's extremely essential in my opinion. And along with that, once you do tend to recall stuff over and over again, I know it can seem a lot, because 6 blocks, and in each of these blocks you have like your anatomy, physiology, immunology, your hematology, pathology, histology, microbiology. I think it's important that you test yourself from time to time, that you do quizzes on a daily basis, be it on your library website, or you find books, or you find worksheets. I think you do need to quiz yourself on a daily basis from time to time, just to see how well you are, what you need to work on, and what you need to lay more stress on. At least it'll give you a clear understanding of what you personally need to work on, and what you need, how do you change your study pattern or your study technique for the upcoming year or the upcoming months to come. So yeah, and just constantly keep evaluating and seeing how you can do better at that time. So yeah. Right. So do you recommend any particular phone service for acquiring a SIM card? So not really. There's not a particular phone service that I recommend. I think there are many types of some providers over there. So you have your GIFGAF, you have EE, you have Leica, you have Voxy, you have Vodafone, you have O2, you have multiple SIM cards. It's not like UAE where you have your Do, Etisalat, and Wasl, but you have multiple SIM cards over there. And I think it seems as to what is more suitable for you, I think. So what you prefer personally, and what data package you seem ideal or apt for obtaining over there. So that changes from person to person, I feel. So there's I think the one which I would recommend perhaps would be giftcaf, because the majority of my friends do use it over there. So yeah. Is there pressure at university making social media accounts like Instagram? Not really, but I would highly recommend you do create a social media account. I mean, obviously it does help with socializing, but it does help you or enable you to join different types of medical societies, or just generally different societies over there. I wouldn't say there's any sort of pressure or peer pressure at university, but having a social media account can be really, really useful in the sense where you can see what different societies are up to, be it your, like, for example, as a medical student, I have joined the anesthetic society, and then I have joined the medical robotics society and the cardio society, so the cardiac society. And having these three societies in place, you tend to see what each of them are up to, and you do have a lot of workshops on these three societies. So I think it's really useful that you do have a social media account and you do follow their Instagram pages, because you can constantly attend seminars and webinars where they do have, I think, useful workshops in with regards to the advancements in the fields of medicine and in each of these societies individually. So yeah. But yeah, I assure you, there's no pressure as such to, make these social media accounts. There's no like peer pressure or anything, but it would be recommended. My personal recommendation would be to make one, maybe if not Snapchat or anything else, but Instagram, because it does have their Instagram pages, which are very useful in my personal opinion. What is the approximate time period within which the BRP could be issued? Where do you recommend the collection point to be? So that's an easy question for me. I did okay. So one of my biggest mistakes was I put my collection point as my university, and I wish I didn't do that, because I had to do a lot of verification checks on Zoom and Microsoft Teams just to ensure that I am present in the UK and that it is in fact me. And it did take a long while. I think it almost took until October end or start of November for me to get my BRP. So my personal recommendation would be to keep your collection point as the closest post office to in the city which you live in. So for example, if you live in Birmingham or Preston or London, have the closest PO box, or have the closest post office closest to your address and collect it from there. And ensure you do have your necessary documents, your passport, your bank account, or any sort of identification which you have that you need to present at that point in order for them to provide you a BRP. So yeah. Can you show the third slide of your presentation, please? Right. So I was just about to get to that. Sorry, just give me 1 second. The third slide of my presentation. It's nothing much, I would say, but it's about, sorry, let me just go to my second slide again. So it's just about being independent and just keeping in mind that, you are in another country and you do have certain costs that, you might want to be in charge of, and, just keep in mind with regards to, having like keeping costs under control, and, eating out less, and having more home cooked meals. And in order to have more home cooked meals, obviously you do need to do groceries on a daily basis. On a daily basis, I mean probably like once a week. Finding out and identifying what you need and what you need and where you could buy it from. And these are just the multiple like lists of groceries that are present in the UK. So you have your Aldi, you have Asda, you have Boots, you have Co-op. So these are just regular groceries. So for example, for people living in Dubai, how you have Lulu, you have Carrefour, and you have like different types of places where you can buy your essentials and your groceries and on a daily basis. These are just like that, but in the UK. And I think the reason why I included this in my slide is this is more to do with saving costs and, like just saving money on a daily basis. Because I remember initially when I went there, I did buy my groceries from a local store, which is right below, which is very, very close to my accommodation, and it is not very well known, but it's more of a convenience store, which is extremely close by, and it's not a well-known brand. And I remember I did spend more than other people used to in the initial few months, in the initial 2 months, before I got to know about these places. And when you do realize, when you have all these groceries like Aldi, Asda, Marks and Spencer, Iceland, Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, I think the most common ones over here are Aldi, Sainsbury, and Tesco. And amongst these three, when you are in another country and you do look at saving prices, you will need to keep in mind and start making price comparisons in your head. And where do you get the freshest of ingredients, where do you get the ingredients which last the longest? So you do have to think about this from that point of view and see which groceries are more suitable to you at that particular point. So yeah, that's the reason why I included them. So how are the questions? Sorry, one second. Right. So how are the questions you face in the examination in contrast to the knowledge you accumulate through the course? To be honest, it's pretty straightforward, actually. So the knowledge that I accumulate throughout the course and on placements and through lectures, it's fairly straightforward. And yeah, some of it tends to be tricky, especially when it comes to the physiology of medicine and understanding different concepts. It does tend to get tricky. But then at the end of the day, as long as you are able to grasp that concept and understand that concept, I think that's all that matters. And it's how well you grasp and remember that concept that matters. So this is not like school where you understand a concept and you are done, and then you have your teacher tricking you into asking you and making you apply that concept. In med school, it's just that the examinations, the questions vary from difficult, like some of them are easy, some of them are difficult, but it's all about as to how much you remember. Like they can ask like the most straightforward questions, or they can ask questions which probably they wouldn't expect a first year medical student to know, but they will ask that question for the sake of testing your knowledge and seeing how much have you learned and to what limit have you learned throughout the entire year. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's any difficult, it's just as to how much do you recollect and how much do you remember. So yeah. What is your exam question format? Essay, MCQ is done online or on paper? No, so it's MCQ and it's online. Simple as that. So if it's not majority of the year, like even when it's not COVID-19, it's MCQ, no essay, it's only MCQ. And normally we do it in a computer lab. This time we did it on our computers at home. Obviously it's proctored because you have to show your entire room to avoid cheating, and you have to show that you don't have any important notes or any documents alongside you. But it's MCQ, it's not essay, it's MCQ, and it's done online. It's not on paper at all. So yeah. Is the ethics you learn for UCAT situational judgment enough, or do we need to learn more? Okay, so the ethics that you learn in UCAT situational judgment is more than enough. It's more than enough. Trust me on this, it's more than enough. And you will tend to have lectures or seminars with regards to medical law and situational judgment, which will improve your thinking and your perspective of how to be in a medical setting a lot better. It will improve your understanding of ethics a lot better, because you will have lectures and webinars and seminars on medical ethics and medical laws and situational judgments, and as a doctor and as a medical professional about the type of situations you might be in on a daily basis. And when you come on placements, it's just that you have to apply all that you've learned in your UCAT situational judgment. You have to apply that on a placement scenario. So I can give you one example. So when I went on my placements in my final 2 weeks, I was offered to withdraw blood and carry out vena puncture. But I hadn't learned that because I'm a first year medical student. And that's something which I only hear in the upcoming year as a second year medical student, which is with regards to vena puncture and cannulations. And they offered me the chance to perform vena puncture and to withdraw blood. However, I have not learned that. And the last thing I want is someone filing a lawsuit against me. So, and obviously for ethical dilemmas, I haven't learned it. Why would I put a patient's life at risk if I haven't learned it? So I said, no, I'm not qualified. I apologized. And I said I'm not trained to perform this. But then I do have certain people in my cohort who lied and said that they were trained to perform vena puncture and were able to withdraw blood, and they performed it without hesitation, and they were able to do it with the guidance of the doctors, which is great. And as a learning curve, it's really nice. But as from an ethics point of view, I just find that I wouldn't agree with that. It's a contrasting dilemma, and it's not something which I would encourage, because you have not learned it in your clinical skills lab. Why would you go and perform it on a patient firsthand? So yeah. I mean, I've learned injections this year. Like, I've learned your subcutaneous and your intramuscular injections, and I haven't performed it on a patient yet. And I'm really, really looking forward to perform it. But never would I test my limit and do something which I have not learned yet, because obviously I don't want a lawsuit filed against me. But then again, it's an ethical dilemma. And once you get your ethics right, like you have in situational judgment, you wouldn't want to do anything to harm a patient or put a patient's life at risk. So yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Is there any other questions anyone would like to unmute and say something?
I think, Keagan, that's it. That's all the questions that we have today.
All right.
Thank you so much. This was really, really helpful. Is there any last things that you'd like to say, or are you done?
No, actually, yeah, I'm done. It's just that just keep in mind, I think my one takeaway message to everyone is just brace yourself for change in the best possible way. Just accept change. Just know that, obviously, like I said over here, there will be a lot of change with regards to your learning style, your learning techniques, and with regards to, making new friends and socialization. Just one thing that there is don't panic. Don't panic. I'm sure all of you guys in school have really worked your socks off and given it your level best to, get to where you are at this point, at this stage right now. So just one thing which I want to say is just enjoy it, because that's one thing which I keep telling myself on a daily basis. Every time I do feel stress and the pressure does get to me and I feel I'm going to burn out, is that I have worked my socks off to get here in school. And now that I am here, just enjoy it. And it is going to be a challenge, but just accept it. And I'm sure it'll be fine. And just get ready for the change and just enjoy it. That's about it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Keagan. I think I can speak for everyone when I say that the webinar was extremely helpful, and you went through a lot of things that are often overlooked but are vital for any student going into university. So for anyone who wants to revisit this webinar, then you can do so by visiting Virtual Med Society's YouTube channel. We'll be uploading a recording of this on there. And if you have any more questions, then DM us on Instagram. And Keagan, would you be okay for me to send you these questions and then you can see the answers?
Sure, definitely. In fact, Mahika, if any of you guys have any questions, I would be more than happy to provide you with my email ID and even my contact number. I'd be more than happy to get to you guys. So any questions, be it about UK, about life in the UK, be it about medicine, anything, I'm always there. So yeah.
That's great, Keagan. So you can, if you send that to me, then I can forward it to all the attendees and people who are, our members.
Sure. No worries. No worries.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Keagan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You too. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.